Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
This is Also Podcast. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Meredith.
We're unapologetically full of opinions on books, podcasts, food, and reality TV.
Join us weekly for deep dives on Vanderpump Rules and Summer House, as well as pop culture news, gossip, and even our own lives.
Actually, I have to talk about this.
3, 2, 1.
Listen, y'all, we have a lengthy version of our disclaimer in the show description text, also in our old episodes, but we do ethically need to at least include part of it at the start of each episode. So here's our briefest version of the disclaimer. If you've heard it before, you can skip ahead 30 seconds, or for the old episodes, 2 minutes. So although we're licensed psychologists, psychotherapists, supervisors, in the context of our professional roles, we are not acting as therapists in the context of this pod, neither for you nor for the reality castmates we discuss. We will give our opinions as our whole human selves, albeit supported by our psychological knowledge, and we will talk about diagnoses rather than assigning them, as we cannot ethically assign diagnoses without formal psych assessment. But both the opinions and diagnoses we discuss might easily be erroneous, as we don't personally know the folks in reality TV shows. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed. Cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray. And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We're going back on over to the Traders, but first we're stopping over in New York City for some reunion things. Some reunions.
We're going to New York, and then we're hitting up Scotland, because why not?
You know it. Alan is excited. He wants to have us over, and we're going to have some crumpet munching.
And oh yeah, that was so funny. That was so good. What did he say? Funny. Good morning, you crumpet munchers.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
I literally cackled. I was like, oh my God, I love that so much. I wrote in my notes, crumpet munchers, yes, please.
All day,
funny.
every day.
Yes. So good.
He is having a ball. He is. What did Tom Sandoval said? I'll try anything once. And he was like, don't threaten me with a good time.
A good time.
Like,
that was so good. He's so on it, and like that's so authentic. Yeah. That's like really him, he Johnny Bananas, who was on that first season for like a hot second, or second season maybe. He was on the second season for like a hot second. He was on his podcast this last week or 2 weeks ago talking to Wells, actually, interestingly enough, and he said no host, he's never, because he's been on multiple different shows, like many different reality shows. He said no host works as hard as Alan. Like Alan's like there the whole time. He's like constantly like practicing or like part of it, and that he's like, I think he's always in character is the idea. Like he just always stays like that, like stays ready. It's awesome. Wow. I love it. Yeah.
If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Get ready. Exactly. That is him. Well, I can go ahead right into my check-in right now, because my little kitten, which is my check-in, if you're watching the video, you can see his little baby. He's my little check-in, because he is a sweet baby angel.
He just is looking right at you.
Oh my gosh. My gosh. Yeah. He's a big eye contact friend. He like really is into that. It's the cutest little thing. And he is going to be making a little bit of a ruckus, I think, because he is a little kitten. He's 12 weeks. So he's like, making a storm happen in whatever room he's in. But he'll calm down eventually. And he just like sits in my lap at all times, just like up in like the crook of my arm. It's like the cutest little thing. I love it so much. So he's come to join us today. And weird noises may happen. We'll try to limit them if they're loud so that we're not hurting anybody's ears. But he also will probably be calm at some point. So I named him Monkey, and I call him Monk, therefore, because it's a short name for monkey. because I named him that before I even met him, even though the idea of calling him Monkey was that I was not going to name him until I got to know his personality. But then because I had referred to him as Monkey so many times, it was too late. He had to just be Monk. He's my little monk. Yes. Hi, sweetie.
So sweet.
Oh my gosh, she's so the sweetest. So he will
just looks at you.
Yeah, he does.
So sweet.
So sweet.
He's like,
so he'll be our like
Mom.
unofficial mascot. Yeah, unofficial.
Yes.
So you'll have to watch the video. People just have to see the video. Although we do put short versions of our videos on YouTube, so you could watch that as well. And then what we'd really love is if you would go to patreon.com/realitytest and get a tier 2 membership to be able to see the whole video episode of our video episodes.
We would love that. We would love that indeed.
Truly. So
Truly.
Tell me how you're doing. What's on your heart and mind today, dear Dr. Ray?
Well, it cannot be Monk, because what a cutie. I have to say, in faculty meetings, it has been a delight to have him to look at when, when you're feeling a little bored or squirrely or whatever it may be.
Yeah, totally. I try not to be distracting, but he'll be distracting and then he won't be for long periods of time. So I figure it's good enough. I think, I could see someone eventually being like, all right, enough of that. But I kind of don't care because I'm not going to not have him in the room just because we're on an apartment meeting. I'm going to have him.
I have to say, I'm not going to say that. And it's just a pleasure to watch him going across the screen. And my favorite things is like chaotic kittens. They're just so fun. They're like little.
He's just like so jazzed, always jazzed, just like the most jazzed. I was saying to you off mic too that it's just so funny how he'll like flash across the screen and like just smack me on the way by, and it's just like I'm even disoriented, like what just happened? It's so funny.
He's like, haha, gotcha.
Exactly, exactly. And then he's like still figuring out his body, so like he'll fall unexpectedly. Like there was one time that he tried to like make it up onto the chair, and I was trying to catch him, and we were both looking at each other in the eyes like no, like as he like slipped down. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm trying, even though he was like a foot from the ground. yeah so funny.
Like I'm going down fast.
Yeah, he's like, wait. It's so cute.
His little tail. He's just a baby. He's just a little baby.
So tell me how you're doing. What is on your heart and mind today, dear Dr. Ray? I'm excited.
Let's see. Well, I'm a little sickly because our audio extraordinaire, he's been sick all week, and I really didn't think I was going to get it. I thought you've hit your quota for this year. You're good on sickness. And then I got it today. So if you're noticing my voice is a little off, my apologies, dear listeners. I feel okay to podcast, just a little squirrely and a little runny and sniffly.
Nasally.
Yeah,
you don't sound exactly. It. And also, I'm glad we're getting this in before you get much sicker, because you could get sicker. Hopefully not. Hopefully I didn't just like make that happen, manifest it. But
no, I would imagine I'll probably, how you feel better but sound worse kind of thing. Mm-hmm. By Monday, people will be like, get the fuck away from me. And I'll be like, I actually feel fine. But
everything's fine. Everything's good.
Yeah.
People will be like, do you have COVID?
Yep. Hopefully not. Connor tested negative, so that was good. But
yeah.
Your baby. I'm sorry, I'm obsessed with your cat.
I know, he is really distracted. But he also like really loves my laptop, like just wants to sit on it at all times. So I've started kind of letting him, but then he'll like he just closes out of the audio recording. Like he actually creates like real havoc that way. So I'm also trying to train him not to sit on the actual buttons. There's so many places he could sit that are not actually gonna fuck shit up. So we're working on it. But yeah, so you'll see me pick him up a little bit sometimes, but otherwise he'll eventually calm down.
Love it. Love it. Love it. But what's on my mind is a show that I have to recommend. Yay. It is called The Pit. It's on HBO, and it is kind of like
medical drama.
Yeah. I am really into it. It's kind of like a spinoff of ER.
Yeah, because it has that guy who was in it.
Yeah, and he's really good. What I like about this show too, I think it brought me back to like when I worked in community mental health, very different things, but I was doing like in-home work with people with schizophrenia, and it was like, it reminded me of things where systems are just so chaotic and you're just kind of like making so many decisions on the fly.
Totally.
And the show really has that energy. And it's just cool being a doctor, of course, is different than being like a social worker, medical counseling person, a medical doctor. Yes, that's true. But I think that so many of our systems in this country are broken and frankly getting more broken by the day. And it's, I don't know. I've just enjoyed this show on so many levels. The performances are good. My one like critique is there's a little bit of like, kind of like House, the glorification of this sarcastic white dude kind of thing. There's the one guy who I'm like, okay, we get one guy, but then there's another guy who I really don't like, who also seems to be kind of a dick, but is a good doctor. And I'm like, we get one of those on this show. We don't need two.
No,
at this
there's a quota or quotient, and both of them have been met by just one.
So so The Pit, I am just such a huge fan of right now, and I think the acting is really good. And it's just really fun. It's easy to watch. It's kind of weird at first because it's literally just like they're in the ER and it's kind of a realistic depiction. I mean, some of the stuff is not realistic. Like there was someone who had like potential harm to others and they didn't act on like a duty to warn, and it was weird.
Yeah, that's sketchy.
So I'm like, if that were, and someone was a social worker and they knew about it too. And I was like, you should at least follow up on this. Someone should follow up on this more than they are right now.
Yeah.
But
there are mandated reporters present. Why is there no reporting?
Yeah. Someone's got to report this. This kid ran out of the hospital. He has a list. Like, let's yeah. It was weird, convoluted storyline. Like his mother went in and took pills to seem sick so she could bring her son in to. It was weird, but
like not quite Munchausen really, because it's not for the attention,
right?
Yeah, she needed. She needed.
I didn't know what else, to do. But then I don't know. It just got weird. But anyway, overall, I think it's a fun show and a pretty easy watch. So I've been enjoying watching that this week.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I saw the commercial for that and I was like, oh, I loved him on ER. That's fun. They're kind of bringing him back as I guess he's probably the draw, right? Because we all remember him from ER and really from nothing else. Like he's basically just ER doctor in my head for sure.
I looked up because I think he looks like other actors or something. Because I'm like, he's been in other stuff, but he really hasn't, like hardly at all.
Yeah, that makes sense because I really do only associate him with that. It's like you don't know if it's like he tried and I just didn't remember him on other stuff, but no, he just literally really did not. Poor guy.
I never watched ER. Was it good?
Oh my God. Yeah, that was like so good. It was so good. It definitely was like before, obviously it was before Grey's Anatomy. It was like what Grey's Anatomy then became for like the next generation. It was that first and it was just fucking really good. Really good. Like George Clooney was on it. You know what I mean? They had some like big names. Yeah. Before they were big, really mostly, but yeah.
Maybe I should watch it.
Do you think it's like
should? Do you think it's worth a watch? Is it like too past its time or whatever?
Right. Does it hold up? I actually
that's
don't
the question.
know. Yeah, I don't know if it holds up, to be honest. I bet there's some stuff I don't know though. I don't remember that, but obviously I wouldn't. I don't know. It came out like, it was coming out as like Will and Grace was like about to start coming out. So I think it was it was probably like, okay, you know? So I don't know. I think they probably stayed away. I don't remember like any people of color. So that's probably a problem. Oh, you know what? You know who was on it? The guy who was also in the Eminem movie, 8 Mile. Oh, it's right there.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck. Oh, Mekhi Phifer. No, Mekhi Phifer. Yeah, Mekhi Phifer. The Michelle Pfeiffer is why that sounds wrong, right? Mekhi something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that guy.
I think you're right. I think I know who you're talking about at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
But.
So he's in it and but like, right. They probably did some tokenizing there, I'm assuming. But I don't think it's like anything egregious because it was pretty like buttoned up, I think. So I think I would try it, at least try a little bit because it'd be interesting to see that guy back in the day when he was on
totally.
that. And then also there's like an episode of it that like everybody I know who watched ER, like everybody remembers that was like close to the finale, but it was when one of the doctors that we'd all been watching for years dies. And it was just like such impactful, like so much impact to that episode of TV. Everyone remembers it. And like that song by Israel that's like, what a wonderful world, you know, like life is whatever. You know that one? Yeah, they played that during it. So now everyone who has seen that episode like gets that like feeling when they hear the song. They're like, oh
shit. I think I might have to watch some ER. I mean, what's his face is kind of a snack, to be honest.
He's very cute. I had a crush on him for sure when I watched it.
And he holds it like he's still pretty cute. And I mean, George Clooney, come on. I mean,
Cannot go wrong. Cannot go wrong with
Charm
that.
coming out of his ears, that man.
Literally. Like, when I never got into Grey's Anatomy, but when people were talking about like McDreamy and McSteamy or whatever, I just was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, I'm the George Clooney and this guy girl, because I definitely was. This was the other guy I really liked a lot. It was so funny. I think they must have known that, bringing him back, because he definitely was a popular one for not having a huge. I mean, he had a big part, but I wouldn't say he was like known for his acting, basically.
Gotcha.
So I'm glad I'm glad that he's probably doing well. He looked good in the commercial. It seemed like he was doing his acting thing.
Yeah, he had some good. I think he maybe has learned some things over his time, but yeah,
if he's not even acting, poor guy, he's like watching himself back. Like all he does is like watch old ER episodes and like criticize himself. So he's learning all this. He's like, we're playing it back, learning his mistakes.
Yes, being like, this is why I never did anything else, kind of thing.
And then he got his big break again, and he's like, okay, I can put it all into action now.
Mm-hmm. And I think he is. He's playing a very particular kind of guy well, in my opinion. I just don't think they needed two of that kind of guy. I think one was enough of that. The sort of smug. It's not like House level smug. When I rewatch House episodes, I'm like, oh my God, holy sexism. I can't with this show.
Dude.
But it's that sort of like, I'm kind of an arrogant, rule-breaking man, but I'm always right, so it doesn't matter. Sort of thing. And I find that
totally
annoying.
It's like the one that like everyone wants to impress because he's such a dick, but like, and then like when he is impressed, everyone's like, it's like whatever. It's actually a little bit of like Boston Rob vibes. Like, if he's impressed by you, it's like such a big deal because he isn't impressed by many people or is a man of few words. But I will say that this guy who's in the pit was not that character on ER. Like, not that I remember. I think he was actually like the good guy, like the nice guy on that. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Changing it up.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of I'm about to sneeze. I know we've got new excuse me. New York thoughts.
We do.
Right?
And before we do that, I also have a touch of an announcement, which I'm assuming you probably have seen because it was just all over the place. But Rachel Kirkconnell and Matt, the Black Bachelor versus ever, broke up. Did you hear snippets at all of her interview with the daddy chickie?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
It's like real hard listen. She's like, she ends up like describing him in like a way that like definitely sounds like gaslighting. And I think a lot of people came out like really hard against him because of that. But like, I think it's more two-sided than that, right? Like, I'm sure there's more to it, but it sounds, at the very least, like my take on it is that she tells us that she hasn't really had a relationship before him, but she does. She sounds like, her view on their relationship sounds like a high schooler, like, you know what I mean? Like a high school relationship kind of, but so does his. Like, I also doubt I bet she's like one of his first real relationships too, because the way that he was described the way he treated her, like basically he's like, why are you so upset about da-da-da-da-da? It's like, I hate that take on like women having emotions. Like, why are you so upset? Like, why would you cry? Like that sort of like sparked the last fight that they broke up over. So like very not cool. Like I'm really not cool with that at all. But I'm sure there's a lot to it, but a lot behind it. But yeah, so that to me sounds like early days relationship as well. Like that view of women having emotions as being like annoying or something. It's like,
jeez.
Like she was describing like worrying that he would get upset with her. Like it just was like so many things that are just like, I don't know. And just like not hearing it as it came out of her mouth. But like at the same time, like extremely concerned with how she's seen. Like basically every third sentence she said something like there's this phrase she kept using of like, it's one of those things where, which is like a signal to me that she's thinking about like what's normative. Like she's thinking about like, it's one of those things that people can relate to because but like sometimes she's saying it's one of those things where, and you're like, what are the things like that? That sounds like a you thing, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it just, she's really only thinking of herself as it compares to like normal experience. And it is tough to listen to. And I felt really sad for her. So yeah, I don't know. I feel bad. I feel bad for both of them. I think they both could use about like 4 more relationships before they settle down.
Yep.
And
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed emotionally young on his season. And it was just like wanting to bring this person on, not being very thoughtful, and then not setting up any supports for them to be successful. Like he had a really tough season. And then Rachel is some pretty racist shit came up about her. And I was surprised that they kind of got back together. But I wonder if that whole dynamic then kind of put him in a power position.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's the other dynamic is like massive power difference. And there would be anyway, because he's a man and she's a woman and she's early in relationship experience, which means she's also early in facing her own oppression as a woman. So like there's no way that wasn't already going to be a power dynamic. But yeah, it's massively worse because he was the bachelor and she thinks of everyone as being like obsessed with him, for example. And she thinks of everyone as like hating her. And then because they're jealous, I think is her thought about it. And then the other thing is, yeah, like he does not have any like awareness to be able to question his power or like talk about it with her. Like it sounds very much like she's like responding to it as the power is a reality, but not about the power. Like she's not really like commenting on, like able to see it outside of it or whatever. You're so right about the power dynamic because he's the bachelor, but then also, and he took her back. Right. Totally true.
Right.
And also the other thing was she was talking about when they got back together and she said, when we broke up, like I totally understood it because I could never know his experience as a black man. And like, of course I understand that. And she said, we thought everyone was saying like, you can't be together. But then when we got off after that episode, we actually saw some people, she said some people were saying they should be able to be together. So then we got back together. She basically said like they wouldn't have gotten back together if some people hadn't been okay with it. I was like, whoa.
That's fucking weird.
And she just said it like rattled it right off, like so she wasn't like aware of like what that sounds like. I was like, whoa, like so you would not have gotten rough.
That's sad. That's real. Sorry, lighting issues, people.
Like, all good.
It's really sad that that their decision making was so focused on what other people thought as opposed to what they wanted.
Exactly. No, it's really, and it sounds like a lot of it's tied up in that, which is sad. And I mean, he's an influencer, right? Like, regardless, even if he wasn't on the show, because he already was at least trying to be, I think. But yeah, so that's just a bummer.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you for sharing that update. I'll have to listen to that podcast. It sounds really illuminating. And I don't know. It's. I think my perspective is they were two kind of lost people who were then lost together for a while, and it sounds like were hurtful to each other.
Yeah, or like not. I don't know. Like he was hurtful to her in the way they broke up, but like it sounded almost like she said that they like wouldn't really fight. Like first she was like, we don't fight, but like we were both stubborn. Like I don't know. She had a little bit conflicting stuff there, but I got the sense that like he would basically like tell her. She said that she would come into the fight with him, or like she'd sit down to talk to him about something, upset about something, and that then she would leave the conversation apologizing to him and hoping he wasn't mad at her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's the part that sounded like gaslighting. Like, and then he told her at the end that the reason they were breaking up is because she can't take accountability for anything. But she was like, it's kind of weird because I like apologize all the time. Oh my God.
That's not good. That is not good at all. Oh, and that's such a common thing in a certain type of relationship where, a woman will come with her feelings and then it will somehow get flipped on her in a really upsetting way.
Right. It's that power thing, right? Like he has the power to set reality. Sad.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel.
Yeah. It's sad for both of them. And I think they both really need to like have 5 more, seriously, like get some more relationship experience. And I think that he basically said like, I want to get married, but I thought his whole thing is like, he doesn't know if he can get married because his dad, the history of his dad. But then he's saying to her, like, I should want to get married to you by now. And I don't. So like, that's a sign. And then, it's like 4 years together, which I don't think that's necessarily true. I think you could be together for a long time before you feel right for that. But then at the same time, I don't think they're right for that because they need other experience first to know what they want. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about now. But anyway, that is kind of sad. I think it's a good like illuminator in terms of like early relationship learning and like what we ideally learn kind of earlier on. But if not, then learn it from this. I think that's a good thing to hear it put that way, because then you're kind of like, why is it sort of like makes you think about it, which is good. But otherwise, it's just really honestly tough to listen to. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Sad.
Oh, yeah. I'm both do and don't want to listen to that.
Exactly.
For
yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. I will say it's a great segue because same thing with Real Housewives of New York, which is like a lot of content I do and do not want to think about and listen to and see.
Yes.
And we agreed that we would talk about some highlights from the reunions of Real Housewives of New York, but that we're not going to recap those episodes. So this is our, this is in place of recapping.
Yes. So I want to start off by saying, holy shit, did you hit the nail on the head with Bryn's, like her feelings of not being comforted after what she disclosed. That totally came up. And I was like, oh, Kate knew. Kate saw that. Or, oh, wait, we are saying our full names now, so it's okay.
It's totally fine.
So that was one of my main things, was like the kind of all the misses that were occurring in that thing, in that whole dynamic. Another reaction, Aaron, what the fuck with the whole thing, and working with, victims of domestic violence, the last thing you ever want to say to someone is like to guilt them that someone's still on the street. Doing that to other people, like that is not what you want to do, because it is as the other women said, rightfully so, like it is incredibly traumatic to go through that type of process for women. People doubt their narratives, all sorts of things. And so to put that, instead of putting it on the perpetrator, on the victim, is so unfair. And she was just kind of clueless, and I still don't think got it.
No,
like, I feel like that happens to her a lot. I think she is in a lot of ways kind of a clueless white woman, and then she'll be open to feedback, but I don't think she fully grasped. Like, I don't think she fully grasped why that was wrong.
No, she's a little bit insulated. Yeah. We know she didn't get it because of the second reunion episode where she was like in the backstage, like, yeah, I just want to have him in jail or whatever. It's like, dude,
right?
Like, get us a clue about it. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see the video I made about that? It was like so fired up about how she reacted.
I saw that you said something about Aaron, and I was like, I wonder if it's this. I haven't watched it yet, but I will.
Yeah, no, the whole idea is that she literally said out loud, the only thing that gnaws at me about this is the fact that he's still out there. Wait, what? The only thing that gnaws at you about the fact she was assaulted is that the guy is still out on the street?
My
like,
God.
Are you fucking
you're
kidding?
So right.
Yeah,
not that it happened to your friend. Jesus fucking Christ.
God. Like, I just was like jaw on the floor. And it was like literally seconds after we had just talked to Brynn about why it was hard for her to come forward. She said, like, at first all I wanted to do was go home and take a shower. And then she said, and then months later when I was like, I should do something about this, it's his word against mine. And I don't know, by the way, it's almost like the show is going to make it even harder for her in court because everyone's talking about how she's a liar. So tell me how you, Aaron, can both say you should take him to court and on the other hand be talking about how much of a liar she is. Like, all they have to do is play a small tidbit of the show in court to completely invalidate her and it would be over, So you can't have it both ways. And on top of that, just that baseline, it is victim blaming. It's a good example of how, like, I think people who hear the term victim blaming, first of all, it gets used, but like people use it in like a pejorative way, like, oh, victim blaming, like people like get mean about that concept. That concept is very important because victim blaming is one of the things that makes people more likely to have PTSD from a trauma if they're victim blamed by anybody in their close circle, but certainly publicly way more likely than to have trauma. And so victim blaming doesn't necessarily look like someone being like, it's your fault that you were assaulted. It doesn't have to be that. And what Aaron did was victim blaming because she's basically saying what you should have done differently is versus like what the guy should have done differently is not assault her, not like what Brynn should have done was go forward with it. It's like that is a type of victim blaming where you're saying that the victim should have done something different. So not here for it. She definitely was like real obtuse. It relates to something I was going to bring up too, just before we move on, that I noticed during that encounter that Racquel was like deeply affected by what was going on. I included like just a shot of her in my video. This is before the second reunion came out because I was very clear. Like I said to my husband, she's definitely a survivor too. Like clearly is a survivor, just the way she's reacting, like not a question in my mind. She's a survivor or someone very close to her is. But I didn't want to out her for that. So like I just put like a shot of her at the end of the video that I did about Aaron, where I felt like it was kind of, but like not clearly signaling or whatever. Because I felt like she made the right reaction because she knows, right? Like she knows what it feels like. But then in the second reunion episode, she like goes to Brynn and she's like, I don't want you to think we don't have your back. And she's like really crying, clearly affected. And I think Brynn was sort of like in the moment, like, why are you crying harder than I am? So then she ends up saying to Racquel, like, it hits close to home too. And Racquel goes, yes, it does. And then Brynn was like, yeah, like I knew it. Like I knew it. I knew that you know what it's like.
Understood. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
it's
And
like.
so like
Yeah.
that's so inappropriate. Like so inappropriate because like both like, yeah, like I could tell too, right? Like I also knew as a survivor myself, I could tell that Raquel was a survivor. But I intentionally didn't like out that as like a definite, even though like I was like positive about it. I wouldn't have outed that because it's not mine to tell. And it's just like, if she's making the choice not to talk about it, then don't talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, so the fact that Brynn, it was almost like Brynn wanted everyone to see like what a good survivor she is, that she was able to tell, or what, you know, it's almost like that. Like she needed people to know that she could tell. Cause she said it twice. Like she was like, I could tell. Like, you know, she like made a big thing of that. I just was really, I was like, I don't like it. I was sort of like, that's a bummer. But I think also, like, frankly, it was kind of clear that Raquel could tell. I mean, kind of clear that Raquel was personally affected by it. It just isn't Brynn's place. I don't know. So I just sort of had a little thing about that. I'll tell you, like, a lot of conflicting feelings. Like, I definitely, overall, my sense of it is, like, I feel very deeply for Brynn. Clearly, like, in terms of her survivor status and like what she's been through. And like my overall take on what's happened with Ubah is like, absolutely what happened was fucked up. Absolutely. And I think that like the instinct of culture and these women at first, not by the end of second reunion, but the instinct of culture and these women to be like, this woman needs mental health help. And then to go on to be like, she's an asshole, like to go on to villainize her. It's like, right, we're all agreeing she needs mental health help. So why is our next reaction to be like villainizing her? Shouldn't our next reaction be, oh gosh, this poor woman? Like, I don't know. I was sort of like, I don't like that we're being ableist in our reaction where we can all acknowledge that she needs support. Like, it just was sort of like, you know, like head spinning. Yeah. And I liked that kind of came to the fore by the end of the second reunion, except that I found it really inappropriate. This is my last thought, then I'll take a pause, I promise. But that I found it inappropriate that both Raquel and Jenna were saying to Brynn, we don't want you to think we don't love you. We all love you. We da-da-da-da-da. By using we language, you're like reifying the ostracization of Brynn. Like you're saying it's like us against her and like making that very clear. It's just really, I was like, that's not the way to do it. Yeah, very patronizing. And also like a reminder that she's on the outs. I just was like, you know, just talk for yourself. Be like, we've talked about, you can say like, we had a conversation. Here's how I feel. Like, that's fine to say we had a conversation, but don't say we think this, we da-da-da-da. We all agree, like, nah, you know?
Totally. And like, I genuinely believe, like you talked about so beautifully, I don't think that Brynn intentionally threw Ubah under the bus. No. I don't think it was intentional. Mm-hmm. I think, I'm not sure. I mean, trauma memory, trauma brain, who knows if she actually had cited the rape, but she was, I think, talking about difficult things that had happened to her. And at the very least thought that she said that. Right. And then acknowledged that Ubah didn't clock it. But I think the narrative
she owned it pretty much right away.
Yeah, the narrative still is like Brynn's a liar, which I don't think is a fair take on what had happened.
No.
And,
dude, and we talked about that before, but like they even on this episode of the reunion, the first one, Jenna admits that it wasn't Brynn who said the thing about Sai hating her, and yet they still use that as an example. It's like, well, that's not like she literally admitted that was not her, and yet we're still citing that as like why Brynn's a liar. I mean, it's just absolutely wild. Like, and the thing about Jessel that was damaging for sure, but it's still true that Jessel said that was the best sex of her life. You know, so like it's still adjacent to like what she had said, but and Brynn was acknowledging it and apologizing. It's just such, I don't know. I appreciated, honestly, a number of the things she said were what I had said and what we had said on our podcast too. Like, for example, she said, I thought that because I said it, that she knew it. And like, that's right. Like, especially for survivors where it's much safer to assume that somebody you told knows it and clocked it because you don't want to assume they don't know and then they use it against you or whatever. So like, of course she assumed Ubah knew because she said it or thought she'd said it either way. So like, I was glad she said that. There were certain things like that I was glad. And there were other moments where I just sort of was like, oh, you know, like I wish I could like help her in this moment, you know, or whatever. But I did appreciate she did stand up for herself a little bit in ways that I think were fair. And I think she also could have had a different type of approach to repair too.
I think Sai was pumped to be able to put her in the villain position. And I really like Sai. I think Sai got a bad edit last season and was doing a lot to try to make herself look different. But she seemed a little too thrilled to paint Brynn as the bad guy.
And then even said to her like glam squad after the second episode of Reunion, she said it towards the end, she said, "Oh my God, that was so big of Ubah." And they're like, "What?" And she was like, Ubah went and hugged her. Like, I would never be friends with her. She said, "I could never be friends with her. She almost ruined her," is what she says about Brynn. And then literally seconds later, she's talking to Jenna, Aaron, and Racquel, and they're talking about how they feel for Brynn. And then she's like, "Yeah, I feel for her." It's like, you seconds ago said you could not imagine being friends with her, and also said like you couldn't believe Ubah would forgive her. Like, you clearly don't want, you know what I mean? It just was such like whiplash. And I agree. I think genuinely she does not like Brynn and really doesn't want to be friends with her, but does also not want to be seen as, you know, the villain, which is fair. No one wants to be seen as a villain. And also, honestly, her opinions are fair to have as well. I just think it was like sort of misleading in terms of how she reacted seconds later.
I liked the Ubah Brynn thing. Before, when Ubah it was like, I think Ubah can come in a little hot. She said something very like, "I don't know that we'll ever," it was like, before the hug, it was like, "I don't think we'll ever recover from this." But it was a little meaner than that. But
she said, I want to go back to when I never knew you. Like, as if I never knew you. Yeah.
Which is pretty tough. But then she like saw Brynn crying and was like, "I love this woman." And they had this really tender moment, and I think had some progress. It was kind of beautiful to watch.
And Ubah did say, like, "It might take me a while." She said, "I need some time. It might even take a long time. But like, you know, I do still love you." And I think that is what needed to be said. And I think it's okay if she's, I don't know. She said, "We'll never go back to how we were." I think they will find a new normal, you know, and I think that's pretty cool. I really do respect that Ubah throughout it all could also see Brynn's humanity, and I think that's powerful.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching that moment of the reunion. But yeah, a lot of rough stuff there.
Ooh. There's also there was a lot that came up that I had said, which I was like very like validated by, because one of them, this is not something I said that also got under my skin though a little bit, that I was like, oh no, was Jessel talking about what Pavit. So first, one of the things I did say, which was wild, was that we were talking during the first reunion episode about Jessel and Pavit, and I was explaining the backstory to my husband, and he was like, "Oh my God, Pavit must be like furious. He must have been so mad that she said that, or that Brynn said that about Jessel." And I was like, honestly, I bet he was just like quiet. Like, I bet he was, and he was like, "No way." Like, he called Sai a bitch and da-da-da. I was like, yeah, but he did that kind of like jokingly. And I was like, I bet he was just like quiet, angry. And then like moments later in the reunion, they were talking about it, and Jessel was like, "No, he was quiet." And I was like, whoa. I was like, I just said that.
Like,
and Sean, we're like, yeah, exactly. Sean and I paused it. We just like looked at each other and started laughing. It just was so funny because she said it exactly the way I had just said it. And he like doubted me, and I was like, see?
I told you.
Yeah, exactly. Validated. But then this episode, when she was talking about like the damage you did, Brynn, was that like I had free reign. I could do anything I wanted. She was like, if I wanted to go on a vacation, he'd be like, sure, go. But now he second guesses, or like now he keeps questioning me. I just was like, oh, wow, that's like sad. Like, I don't know. It just, I don't know. That was tough. I just imagined her feeling like really restricted. And like, I also understand him being hurt and imagining that Brynn's not lying. But I also feel like, I mean, I think it could be hurtful enough that she said that the best sex she had was with this other guy. I don't know that he needs, you know, that could be hurtful too. But I don't know. I just feel bad for her that makes it so that she can't like do things. I don't know. Why? Like, why? Does he assume she's going back to him? Or like, how does that relate to her freedom? I don't know.
And I don't know. Sometimes people have really good sex with a random one night stand. And that doesn't mean they don't love their partner.
Exactly.
It's deep, because I think their relationship's a little funny, but on its head, it's not that deep. But
no, and I think they like acknowledge they're like friends, you know, they have like friend vibes between them, and I think that's okay. Yeah, so that was a thing I wanted to bring up as well. Yeah, you brought up the fact that nobody comforted Brynn right after she disclosed that was really tough. The Racquel apologizing, and then that's it. Actually, I hit on all my little highlights, but yeah, the thing about Aaron saying it gnaws at me about this, and then later saying I just wish he was in jail, was just, it like said a lot about her exposure to survivors, and that was tough. I just sort of was like, I mean, guess that's good, right? That's a privilege, but I just sort of was like, wow, that probably hurt like a lot of people to hear.
Yeah, I bet she'll reflect. I think she's kind of, I mean, her whole "we brought mezcal to America. I'm glad they called that out because it was so cringe and embarrassing. And so she's willing to be like, oh, I'm embarrassed. Like, that was weird and stupid. But I'm sure just because she was called the fuck out, like, no, you didn't. Like, what the fuck are you saying? It's just ridiculous. But
I mean, I guess if I made a video about the what gnaws at me thing, then I bet other people did too. So probably other people have called her out for that too, which is good. I hope that makes it something she can learn from too.
I think she does learn. But I don't think, I think one of my things about her is I don't find her to be a very empathic person necessarily.
Yeah, that's the insulated part. It's like she hasn't really put herself in other people's shoes much because she hasn't like learned much about other people's shoes.
Or isn't interested, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Like because she hasn't had to for other reasons, then she hasn't learned to find it like a good thing, or like to find the appeal and the curiosity that comes with learning about other people. You want to learn more, Yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think she has some unempathetic takes, and then like she also really does do a lot of the things she gets accused of, and she like does not see it. Yeah.
It doesn't want, I know her inability to kind of see it. Like, she is just as much of a shit stirrer as Brynn is, if not more. And at least Brynn's willing to kind of own up to things. I don't find Aaron very willing to own up to much of anything.
No, definitely not. And I also do think Brynn has to be like really pushed to own up to things, to be fair. But like at least she does. You're right. And Aaron, yeah, there are certain things she just like absolutely will not touch. Like the whole thing about the rumor thing, like you acknowledged that Brynn knew about part of it. So like why are we talking about it as like a lie? Like that's not a lie. It physically cannot be, because she told Ubah before anyone else told Ubah. So she had to have known. Like it just, it
was bizarre.
So
bizarro world. And then the Rebecca Minkinoff thing, her coming in and Aaron being like, you're not a friend to me. And like, I get it. She was going through a hard thing, but I don't know. It sounds like Rebecca didn't know any of those things, or that she felt that way and felt hurt and confused. But
she's like, I sent you a poem.
If you're a very well-known Scientologist, you probably should be expected to talk about that a little bit on a reality TV show such as this one.
Right. And no one talked about the fact that she and her dad gave over $1 million to Scientology, the Church of Scientology. And that's like part of her history with them. Just like Racquel said in the testimonial, that like she knows a lot of people give their salary. And for Rebecca Minkoff, that must be a pretty penny. I noticed that Rebecca never brought up what Racquel said specifically in the confessional. I think to not draw attention to that, because then everyone's going to be like, how about the millions?
That's a lot of money to give to that fucking... I mean, it is a cult. What did she say? That was hate speech? That was kind of wild,
because
too.
She said it's a world-recognized religion. I mean, it's based on, right, like science fiction books. I don't know. Is there something different about that? I feel like there is. I don't know. I think religions in general are cults. I just think religions are cults. Yeah. So, I don't know.
I agree. I think Scientology has been very controlling of people, but I think the Mormon church is that way too, where they'll like ruin your life if they feel like you're being disloyal to them. There's a similar sort of things. Like Catholics, problematic in all sorts of ways, but I've never been hunted down for no longer being Catholic.
No right, exactly. Like, they have like terms for it. They're called like SPs, I think, when they're like no longer in the Scientology. Yeah. And then there's like a whole deal. There's a whole deal. I've learned a lot about it prior, and then obviously forgot a lot of it because I just don't need to know it for my daily life, and too much needs to go on in my head for me to care about that long term. But I definitely have learned some disturbing stuff about it, and about Mormonism. Exactly right. And I think the reason that they're a cult is because like the definition of cult does actually include religions. It's like there's one person that's like more knowledgeable than anyone else that you treat as like most knowledgeable, like Jesus or God, or I guess for them it's like L. Ron Hubbard. I don't know. But like Joseph Smith for Mormons. And so it's like that part. There's like the part where like you have to like give up parts of yourself to like be a part of the membership. It's like things like that, which like absolutely that relates to religions. So I don't know. It's just sort of the way she was like, I don't know. I just sort of feel like there's a way to not see that as hate speech too. I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? Yeah. But I mean, that was weird. Her coming on was weird. Like the vibe was weird. I didn't even realize it was so contentious with her.
Yeah, people are not. I didn't realize they were so not a fan. And they didn't even really want to address anything with her. They were like, we're all set.
Yeah, they're like, just get her out of here. We don't want her getting any more airtime. She lives in fucking Florida. We're all set.
Yeah, that was shady too. Oh, are you what was it? The location police? I was like, sick burn. I do think that's a thing, though. Now that Ubah lives in Connecticut, like, is that gonna be a thing? Is she gonna be allowed to be on the show anymore?
Exactly. And just because you pay taxes in New York doesn't make you a New Yorker. It's like a cultural thing.
Yeah, it is. I'm not a New Yorker, but it is. It seems like a whole thing to be a New Yorker.
Mm-hmm. And they're I think it was New York that this came out of. I have heard it in different contexts, but I first heard of the B&T, the like bridge and tunnel, was like first brought up for New York City because it's an island. And so like the bridge and tunnel people would come from other boroughs and et cetera that would come to Manhattan to like party and go to the clubs and stuff. And they were seen as like lesser than because they're the B&T. They're the ones that don't even really belong here. So like Manhattan was like a club, you know, it's like very much itself like a isolated, they like think they're the shit, which fair. And I'm not even like downing that. I think that's great. Manhattan is like a real hub for like a lot of culture and all sorts of really cool things. So like I get it. But so I think that is actually like a real part of what's happening there with Rebecca Minkoff and therefore what happened with Ubah, where it's like you actually like literally are not one of the like people here in Manhattan living here regularly.
Yeah. I'm kind of sad because I think Ubah's great on the show.
I'm sad too. I really want her to come back. I mean, she could be a friend of, right?
Yeah, she could. Or maybe she could, you know, Oliver can keep her apartment in New York so she can do the show. I loved when she was like,
she probably makes enough money. She makes enough money. She'll probably keep it herself. Keep her own apartment. Yeah.
If she wants
to. Yeah, I know. It was so funny. She's like, I don't care. She's like, I'm hot. I don't need to be. I don't have any sort of marginalization.
Oh, yeah. That was a little weird, though. But.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a way in which that's like, I don't know, right? Is that like invalidating to people of color to sort of see, and like also like I guess really privileged, and also I think it's fair, right? Like there's this narrative that like poor Black people, you know, and there are people who are Black who have a like really great experience with being Black, and it has nothing to do with that, you know. And I think that is fair to like raise up that experience, and I think maybe it's the way she did it. I don't know, but I do get that like there's this like poor marginalized people when that's not everyone's experience of that identity, even though it's marginalized historically.
Right. Where Ubah might have the pretty privilege too and stuff like that.
There you go. That's the part where that feels icky. It's like, yeah. And it is worth celebrating, and Black excellence is such a thing as well. But like, you're right. It is the fact she like built up, she like played off of her other type of privilege, which is like,
right.
You know, that is the part where it's sort of like, well, maybe that's a good thing if you're like acknowledging you have privilege, but that's not really how she did it. She just was like, I'm too hot for that, you know, which is
I get everything for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's not everyone's experience of that, but yeah.
But we love Ubah. We love them all, really. They really are, you know, I agree with the way that Brynn said that, like, we're here to share, and they are. And I had no idea that Rebecca said that on the helicopter, that she's doing it to build up her business after COVID. Like, wow, that made me very much dislike her. It's like, yikes.
Yeah,
Tough.
It sounds like she just did not get on with anyone.
Yeah, and to say like that is why she's back is like a exact anathema, like, or exactly like opposite to what we want them to be able to do on the show, which is like bring in a big part of themselves. And it's true, she has not really shared a whole lot about herself at all. So I appreciate that point. I don't think Brynn handled it well, like the way she sort of was like overproducing and like kind of bullying even a little bit. But I do think that it's fair that she was put off by Rebecca after that conversation. And I liked Brynn's point about like, we're all here to share. It's not about the fame. And I like that because obviously it is about the fame and they are getting fame out of it. But I do like the idea of like, they're here to share, which means they're also like changing the narrative on certain topics. And I think that's really key.
Absolutely. And I think they're a great cast, and I'm sick of people that I see online shitting on them. I think it's racist.
They're like, bring back the racist ones, Ramona. Great.
Yeah. The real New Yorkers. It's like, no, Ramona. I mean, I have a soft spot for Sonia, but like,
I know we do.
I don't know why. I just do.
She's problematic, but I also kind of love her.
Yeah, there are just so many problematic white ladies that it was just time for a fresh start. So let's also give these women a chance to like find their footing. And also, I think they've done a phenomenal job. So fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it is frankly, like more realistic view of like New York City today. You know, I think that there is that sort of different side of it that is very much like Hamptons, although these women have places in the Hamptons too. But thinking about the like sort of like older New York style of Sonia and Ramona, that is a part of the culture too. But it is like one part of it that we learned a lot about. So now it's time to hear about this other part of it.
Right.
So I'm excited about it. I enjoyed it, and good for them.
Exactly. Oh, well, we covered a lot today. My goodness.
We sure did. Thank you for those who stuck with us. Little kitty. So we see a little kitty on our video version. And you can check us out on social medias at dr.realitytv, REALITV. That's TikTok. On our Instagrams, we are at Dr. K Pause and at Dr. Ray Pause, respectively, if you were to say me and then Dr. Ray. And then we are also on at Reality Test Pod for our YouTube channel, and just Reality Test Pod is our Facebook page. And our email is realitycheckpodding, PODDING, @gmail.com. We're also on Patreon, last thing, which is patreon.com/realitytest. And you can also like search us on Patreon. You can search us, but you just want to put the @ before you put reality test. And just a reminder that this time next week, if we have 20 members, then we will continue doing something. So like the main thing is we're going to continue potting no matter what, but certain things that we're putting time and energy into, just like we might need to check ourselves, because it's like a lot of work for not any sort of like remuneration, including for our sweet baby angel who's currently sick, also our sweet sound connoisseur. So like that would be great if we could pay connoisseur, because he's given us good quality sound all this time. So please, thank you. And then by the end of February, if we have 50 members, then we will give $10 a month to the ACLU. I'm going to say at least a year. I say we do that for at least a year. I'm really down with that. I think $10 a month is the least we can do, and we'll happily do that for a year if we can get to 50 members by the end of February. That said, thank you again to Daisy D. Not really, that's not her last name, but I like calling her Daisy D. Thank you, Daisy Faulkner. And you keep getting shout outs every time because you are a first member. And also Jerry Lawrence. I said Jerry something last time because I could not remember the last name, but I looked it up this time. Jerry Lawrence, thank you for being our second member. You both are a hoot and a riot. Jerry Bear, cute, love. That'll be our nickname for you, because our top 2 Patreon members get nicknames, and that's how we're doing it.
Why the heck not?
Exactly.
And don't forget to download us. We've been getting a lot more downloads lately, and I think we could get even more, because we know that there's folks listening who are not downloading, and it could really help us out.
Yeah, throw a couple downloads down on your phone and delete them afterwards if you'd like, but just as long as you download them, that can help us get some ads at some point. We did get one ad, which we'll be able to start. I think maybe it's already on this episode. Is it on this episode, Dr. Ray?
It is. Yes, it is indeed. It will be once our connoisseur does it.
Thank you, connoisseur. And thank you all so much for listening and subscribing, rating, and reviewing. We have some fun reviews, I had to say. I've really enjoyed our reviewers, so thank you all for that as well. And what a joy. What a joy, Dr. Ray, it has been, again, to spend this time with you. This was a long ep. Thank you all for listening. And we'll see you next session.
Bye.
Bye, baby.